Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tennyson E Stead, writer and director of Quantum Theory, founding member of Eight-Sided Films. My last blog was about what dramaturgy is, and I started talking about reading playwrights in that blog. So today I'd like to talk about some of my playwrights that I love and who they are and why I love them. And I think I'm gonna cover four. So first of all, I'd like to mention probably I have two favorite playwrights. One of them is Tom Stoppard and one of them is Bill Shakespeare. And I'm going to talk about Tom Stoppard first because you don't want me to talk about Bill Shakespeare first. Tom Stoppard is also a huge Shakespeare nerd, obviously. He wrote Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead and directed the movie as well. And which was a super fun movie. If you haven't seen it, it's got Tim Roth and Gary Oldman as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead is one of those plays that every high school kid loves because it's funny and it's silly and it's got knives and swords in it, and you know it's very whimsical and snarky and kind of mean a little bit, and but also very smart. And it makes kids feel smart to play these characters. And I think that's actually a really good thing. I think that it's a fantastic sort of entry into theater because it rewards risk-taking and at the same time it gives you a lot of structure and it gives you basic, strong comic beats to work with and play off of that are grounded actually in vaudeville of all things. You know, it's as informed, I would say, by Neil Simon, who's another one of the playwrights I'm going to bring up today, as it is by Bill Shakespeare. And the duo of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and the way that they play off each other and their kind of quippy little banter is such a good thing for kids to get into their bodies without feeling like they're doing old fogey work. So it's one of the first plays that I fell in love with, and I'm not alone. That happens to a lot. It's like filmmakers who say they love Star Wars. It's not quite on that level, but kids who do theater love Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. So that was one of the first plays that I ever really learned backwards and forwards. And two of my other favorite Tom Stoppard plays in my later years are Arcadia and The Real Thing. And I think The Real Thing is actually one of the most cynical and actually at the same time one of the most optimistic plays about young romance that really I've ever read. It deals with the loneliness and it deals with people's feelings of shame, but it also introduces the idea of accountability into that world that you live in when you're crushing or when you think you're in a relationship or stuff like that. So what do I like about Tom Stoppard? Well, first and foremost, he's structurally sublime. You will not find a scene in a Tom Stoppard play where every character doesn't have a strong motivating action. So it's really good for study purposes because you're always working on a strong foundation and you get a strong sense of how plays are supposed to work. He's definitely a playwright who doesn't mess around with his actors, and I admire that and I appreciate it, and I've learned from it ethically as much as I have structurally. So that's good. And then from there, he's got a lot of specificity and complexity that he likes to bring to his characters. His characters' motivations are always strong, but they're never super simple. They're never obvious. And that's exciting for me because it helps to, first of all, train actors to dig into material, which I'm always a fan of, and at the same time, and not just dig in terms of with the pages, but exercise their impulses and in the scene work, in the moment, when they get in the moment, make discoveries. That's the thing that is the most exciting for me. So I like that. And at the same time, like I said, he keeps the action on point. So it's helped me really hone my own sense of specificity in dealing with genre material because motivations in genre material are so often obvious and so often just telegraphed all the way down. And you know, and that doesn't mean motivations have to be inconsistent. People can be driven, people can be motivated by the events of their life and by all of the complex shit that they're going through, you know, as opposed to just, well, this is the character that wants to be the hero, and this is the character that won, and then, so why does he want to be here? Well, his mom died and he can't get over it. And it's like, oh, dude, like, that's not how people are. People have things competing for their attention all the time. People have regrets about the things that they're proud of. That's a normal experience for people to have. It's okay to have that in movies. Just don't deviate from the action of the story. You know, but why is this character so committed to the action of the story? Well, let's look at that. Let's really, you know, let's build a character who's got a lot of reasons to be committed and allow the actor to explore all of them. And then as they work through their line readings and as they deal with other actors, what they're going to find is that the way another actor asks them a question or demands something from them is going to ping other corners of their mind. Wow, we just had a little brownout. Exciting. Corners of their mind and other motivations are going to come up through the work that influence how they interact with people, and it's going to make the character more specific and more interesting. So that I love it about Tom Stoppard's work, and whether he's dealing with big heady ideas and, you know, universe crashing, you know, notions, or whether he's talking about one person researching another person who's been dead, you know, for 150 years. Either way, you're going to find that that character is motivated by a complex range of forces that they're trying to make their peace with, and that's why they're pursuing the action that they are. And that, to me, is enriching. So, having said that, one of the characters who is most obvious, one of the playwrights, I should say, who is most obvious in writing motivations for characters is William Shakespeare. One of the sort of truisms that people talk about and put out there with regards to Bill Shakespeare is that there's only two motivations. You either want to fight or you want to fuck. That's all Shakespeare characters want to do. And the really interesting characters want both. Richard III wants to kill everybody and wants to fuck everybody. Lady Macbeth wants to kill people and fuck people. That's all she wants. You know? And Iago also wants to kill people and fuck people. And I would say that's true. I would say these people's... Now, there's a but in here, first of all. Iago makes a great example because Iago is one of the most specifically and artfully written psychopaths in the history of literature. And you have to ask the question, again, a dramaturgical question, what did Shakespeare know about psychopathy? What did Shakespeare have to pull from when it comes to human behavior disorders? What in the hell was he observing, or how did he observe it to come by that information? Because Iago's incredibly astute. Also, Coriolanus is a play. There's a great film built on the script, directed and performed by Ray Fiennes. Watch it. Where did Coriolanus is a soldier who's returning to Rome, and can't leave the war behind, and his portrayal of PTSD in Coriolanus is shockingly astute. Where did you get this in? How did you know, Bill? I don't think you went to war. How did you know this stuff? What were you just that astute an observer of human behavior, and were you surrounded by people who were having these experiences, or what? It's amazing. So, you know, on a deeper level, when you start really working with the characters and you start really working with the text, you will see that actually the motivations of these characters can get very human. But on the most basic level, the way that you rehearse and the way that you perform a Shakespeare play is just to decide, am I fighting or am I fucking? And then let the language carry you through, because the pacing and the the movement of the language itself, the poetry of the language itself, the meter of it will actually teach you what you're feeling. You'll work through the text, you'll get the bounce of it down, and you'll start to feel the rhythm, and that rhythm will pull emotions out of you, just like singing, just like smiling. It's like smiling. You smile, and you start to feel a little better by forcing yourself to smile. It does work because there's endorphins or something is getting unlocked in there. And meter actually works in a very similar way. Singing works in a similar way. And so the key to performing Shakespeare is to get the rhythm down and then go from there. But once you do get that rhythm down, you start to make all these discoveries about the psychology of the character because you're in the moment, you're having these experiences. And then, and then you realize that you're not the first person to have this experience, or that you've seen other people having these experiences too. The feelings that you're having and the responses that you're having are, common to you, to the world that you live in, and relatable. And that's just in and of itself, that's amazing. The fact that a person can write something that accomplishes that, to me, is it's something to live up to for sure. And at the same time, what that writing does really is it frees you up to have fun, because at the end of the day, Shakespeare is about picking up a bunch of swords and running around and trying to fight and fuck everybody. That's what every single play is about. We're talking about Twelfth Night, we're talking about any of the historical plays, Henry V. Here's a bunch of swords, go kill everybody. That's the play. That's the play. The Tempest is all about everybody trying to have sex, unless maybe Prospero wants to kill them. We'll figure it out. That's the whole thing, and that's playtime. That's fun, guys. That's you can't just if you can't open up a chest full of like feathered hats and swords and not understand that it's playtime when that chest is open, then you don't have any business in this industry. You're in the wrong industry. You fucked up somewhere. Turn around, go back, look for the off-ramp that you missed. Because you're in the wrong place. And even if it's a little hard for you to get into that, if it's a little, you see the hats and you see the swords and you feel a little intimidated and you're like, oh, I'm a little self-conscious, well, you at the very least should enjoy the fact that you're surrounded by other people who are going to dive in there and pull out all the costumes and the silly hats and fight each other and try and have sex. I don't know. It seems to me like Shakespeare is just a constant gift to our community and our industry, and if you're ever feeling sad, you should just do a Shakespeare play. You feel better, you run around, goof off, get back in your body. That's what I like about it. It puts you back in your body. It gives you the chance to be impulsive and sing with people. And be a community, that's, and man, he wrote some great stories in that process, and the characters are so honest and so real and so interesting and fun, and then you learn about your friends and you learn about the people that you work with. So that's good. You should read some Shakespeare for sure, and you should perform it. Everyone should have performed Shakespeare at some point. I don't think it's too much to ask, and and it's good for you. It's good for your heart to do it. And Neil Simon, I love, for a lot of the same reasons. Neil Simon is one of those playwrights that in my youth I really resisted, and it's because he's an old fogies playwright, and nobody would dispute that. But one of the things that's magic about theater is the more you rehearse something, the more it works its way into your brain you build neural pathways to do these things from muscle memory. That's what rehearsal is. You're building, running it through the cerebral cortex, right? Until it becomes deep enough that you can do that thing without having to think about it. Your body just goes off and does it. Your mind can work on the moment that you're in and analyze impulses and do all this other stuff that's going on. So I Neil Simon may be old fogey stuff, but my teachers were all old fogies, and they wanted us to do Neil Simon. So you do a lot of Neil Simon in school, and or at least you did when I was in theater school. And there comes a point where you are working with a really good cast, and that everybody's very astute about their timing, and people are working really hard to squeeze those comic beats down so that they get to the punchlines a second before the audience, and the show comes alive for you. And for me, it was on Laughter on the 23rd Floor, which is a play about a writer's room on a television show, a variety show. And suddenly you're realizing that Neil Simon is there with you, and you're all family. And he was doing this 50 years ago or longer now. And, and he gets you. He knows exactly what you're up to because he was you. And that's kind of a beautiful moment to be in. So now I like Neil Simon plays. So that's that. He remembers what it was like to be you, and that's cool. One of the cool things about rehearsing is that you get to know these playwrights. You get to know William Shakespeare pretty well, I think. If you've done a lot of Shakespeare, you're not going to be surprised when you meet the man, if you ever, whatever, however you want to interpret that, but it wouldn't be surprising to you. To find out that he is how he is, because you already know how he is, because you've built those same habits. His habits manifest in his writing. The things we do every day, we do everything that way, we write that way. So you take that writing, you beat it into your head until it's your own neural pathways are just relying on those same structures, and part of those structures are going to be the habits of the people that wrote it. So, there's parts of those personalities that we take on and we inherit literally into our bodies. Just as it's a poor man's gene pool. Rehearsal is like genes. It works its way into you. So I feel like, definitely Neil Simon is the uncle I wasn't too sure about when I was little. But turns out he's one of my coolest uncles. And I wish I'd appreciated him more when I was a youngster. And, the last playwright I want to talk about is someone I haven't rehearsed, actually. And it's my friend, Meghan Brown, Meghan, if anybody wants to look her up. Meghan Brown wrote The Pliant Girls and won Ovation Awards here in Los Angeles for her play. And my actor, Tyler Seipel, was in the play, and he brought me to it. And like everyone who saw the play, I was amazed by what I saw. And then Tyler directed at the Stuart Rogers Studios in North Hollywood, where we produced The Dream Factory. He directed her play, The Fire Room. And that was an outstanding piece of theater that I really enjoyed watching. And I wound up working with one of the actors on Dream Factory who was in Fire Room. And since then, I've seen one other of her plays, which was called The Killer Dies, which is kind of a murder thriller, which is a lot of fun. And what do I like about Meghan? Well, first of all, she's very contemporary, and she's clearly a millennial, but she has a very contemporary and yet very astute sense of language. So she gives her actors lots of fun things to say that they can relate to and that create a strong sense of rhythm. She gives them songs to sing, which we already know I like that. And at the same time, she stays focused on the action. And there's always some kind of element of fantasy in what she's doing, which she and I think, have in common. She likes the stage as a world unto itself, and she's not afraid at all to invent new rules for that space. which makes her an explorer. And so far, I can honestly say that every time I've been to one of her plays, it's been a new experience for me. It's been something that I couldn't have gotten anywhere else, and it's really cool to be able to see that happening in front of me in real time. It's very important and enriching for me to know that future dramaturgs are going to have good work to do, that there's a legacy being created in our generation. And it gives me hope, and it gives me a sense of strength in my own work, knowing that we can achieve this. We can live up to the expectations and the standards that have been set by the people who have come before us and build something even greater and leave that behind for future generations, that our culture can be expanded on and improved on and not just reduced in this time and age. So thank you, Meghan, for being as magnificent as you are. And I love your plays, and I'm excited to see more of them. So thank you. And that's going to wrap this blog up. If you want to see what's going on with 8-Sided Films, if you want to see what's going on, give us a subscribe right over here. Give us a like. There's going to be a web series coming up in the next 2.5 weeks or so called Declassified, Project Icarus. Declassified is a series of government projects undertaken by the Bureau of Applied Defense Development, which doesn't exist in real life, but they've got this archival footage that they're releasing to the public of things that they did during the space race in the Cold War that maybe they shouldn't have. And the first project is Project Icarus, which is the story of a one-man mission, one-way mission to Saturn's moon of Titan. This guy's going to be in an Apollo command module flying through space for 8 years. There's all kinds of problems that they didn't foresee. There's mistakes that were made. He's going to try and keep his spacecraft and himself in working order, sitting in that tiny little command chair for 8 years so that he can actually do the job he's being sent there to do. And the web series will be the transmissions he sent back to Earth. And I think it'll be good. I think people will enjoy it. I think it's going to be a little bit different from any other web series we've seen. Anybody who's saying, well, you kind of did that with the Starmind record. Yep, it's another documentary web series. We're going to do a couple of different seasons of Declassified. We'll keep doing Declassifieds as we go on because I think it's cool. I think it's neat. So, yeah, that's happening. And once we start shooting Declassified, I'm not sure what I'm going to do for these vlogs because I think my camera is going to have to be fixed to the set so that we don't move it. You know what I mean? We want it to be consistent from episode to episode. We're going to shoot an episode a week, so I may be doing vlogs from my phone. We'll find out. But in the meantime, have yourself a great evening. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.